They broke into song and dance as Senior Counsel Martha Karua landed back on Kenyan soil. This after nearly 6 hours of detention in neighboring country Tanzania. The People's Liberation Party leader alongside Law Society of Kenya Council member Gloria Kimani and Lynn Goge of the Pan-African Progressive Leaders Solidarity Network had traveled to Tanzania at the invitation of the East Africa Law Society.
Here we are, these are our bags. They've just given us back our bags.
In a video posted on the X platform early Sunday, Karua questioned why access to a fellow East African community member state was being denied without explanation or due process.
Chilling at Mwalimu Nyerere International Airport, Dar es Salaam, where the three of us have been detained awaiting deportation. We thought that as citizens of Jumuiya we were free, but not yet uhuru.
According to Karua, their deportation appeared to be linked to their intent to observe the politically sensitive trial of Tanzanian opposition leader Tundu Lissu, who is currently in custody, facing treason charges.
The great Mwalimu Nyerere, who welcomed all people, the oppressed of Africa, this is not what he must have envisaged, that we can be detained here. The common thread among us, we are guests of East Africa Law Society, and there is fear in this government of our dear Mama Suluhu about people who may be interested in the politically motivated cases against Tundu Lissu. Aluta, continua. Aluta.
The arrests have triggered widespread outrage back home. Kenyan leaders, including MPs and legal professionals, have slammed the Tanzanian government's actions, terming them demeaning, unwarranted, and a blatant violation of basic human rights.
And I, for example, believe the professions, the architects, the lawyers, should have the right of establishment so that a Kenyan advocate can open offices in Dar es Salaam. But Mother Karua has been mistreated today. We stand in solidarity with her. Of course, we wish the people, the great people of the United Republic of Tanzania well, even as they prepare for elections, which are later in the year. But we want to say that us give space for integration.
The Pan-African Lawyers Union has also condemned the incident, calling the detentions arbitrary and unjust. All eyes now turn to Tuesday when Tundu Lissu is expected back in court to face treason charges in what is fast becoming a high-stakes political flashpoint in the region. Andrin Kilemi, TV 47.
Yes, indeed, that story features on most of the front pages today. On the Star, Iron Lady Karua runs into Tanzanian iron wall. On the Standard Lissu trial, Karua denied entry into Dar es Salaam. It is there on the front page of the Daily Nation as well. Tribulations after Uganda. Tanzania now ejects Karua. And on the front page of the People Daily, they say, Suluhu goes rogue. These are just some of the headlines. Even on Taifa Leo, Karua afurushwa Tanzania. Ni habari ambayo, to be honest, then we cannot ignore it. It's on most of the front pages today. Let me welcome my panelists this morning. Kipruto Arap Kirwa, who served as Cabinet Minister for Agriculture in the Kibaki 1 administration, and before that as MP for Cherangani. Karibu sana.
Yeah, thank you.
Next to him we have Samuel Pogisio, who also served as Cabinet Minister in the Kibaki 2 administration in charge of ICT, and also as Senate Majority Leader in the 12th Parliament. Karibu.
MP Kacheliba.
MP Kacheliba before that as well.
Can't say that.
Gentlemen, karibuni sana. Now, many Kenyans may not really understand how big of a problem or why we are even seeing this on our front pages. But it raises pertinent questions about the sustainability of this dream of an East African community. And probably the reason why it is on our front pages today. Most lawyers are saying this is not what we envisioned. This should not be happening. Bwana Kirwa, from where you sit, how big or how much of a problem is this that we can see a Kenyan lawyer, maybe not just Martha Karua, any other Kenyan lawyer blocked from entry into any of the East African nations?
Well, it is a systemic issue, Fred, in the sense that most of the presidents in Africa are totally critical of any opposition to their mainstream thinking. I don't think it is even the question of Kenyan going to Tanzania as a lawyer. It is a question of the level of intolerance that they have about any challenge to the systems they have established. I know they have been able to emasculate opposition in Tanzania, and therefore the entry of somebody from Kenya is likely perhaps to upset their own thinking, because anything they do to somebody from outside the country, that's Tanzania, is likely to elicit a higher level of outrage, not only from here, but also from any other part of the world where justice is seen to be acceptable. I remember this is the second time Tanzanians are taking issue with the presence of Mheshimiwa Karua in Tanzania. I remember a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, one of the, actually is the vice chairman of Chama cha Mapinduzi, Mzee Stephen Wasira, was making sort of, with a bit of caution, but was almost condemning the presence of Karua in Tanzania. And I realized that not all was well. But what is coming out is that the current president of Tanzania, though we thought she was going to be softer than the late President John Pombe Magufuli, has become more intolerant to the opposition. There have been abductions, there have been disappearances of individuals in Tanzania never to be seen again, and some of them were found dead. This is a sign of a regime that is too insensitive to the wishes of the people, and they are not keen to be criticized. Yep.
Yes, yet, Bwana Pogisho, we see that Uganda is probably facing a similar issue where the main opposition leader is behind bars, but we did not see, because the same lawyer got access to Uganda and even got access to the courts there to defend, to the court-martial actually, to defend that opposition leader. Similar issues are happening in Sudan, where the first vice president is still under house arrest. So why should we be concerned when Martha Karua is denied access to Tanzania?
Fred, let me just remind you that a few weeks ago I said here that intolerance towards opposition is growing in East Africa, and East Africa is actually almost failing to fulfill its treaty for the formation of even an East African community is going to be difficult now, because the treaty allows members of the various member states free entry into the countries. So when you hear that Martha Karua has been refused entry, first of all, that breaks the treaty, that breaks the law. But how do you even stop an East African from going to East Africa? So it's a bit difficult, because South Sudan has done the same. The opposition leader now is in whatever prison, or in some kind of prison. Uganda, as you can see, where Besigye is, and now Tanzania. Now the problem with Tanzania, I think we have a problem that's going to be a bit difficult to explain. It's a woman president expelling another fellow woman who is trying to express her interests in a legal system. But let's go further and understand, why do you think that Samia Suluhu, the president of Tanzania, is jittery about all this? Because she wants to get this election by all means. You know, she was just finishing a term that was not her term. And now she really wants a legitimate term for herself. And she will therefore fight shadows to get there. And the fact that Martha Karua is just going to listen to a case, she's not even representing the fellow. She's just an interested party, a human rights person going there, looks like a threat. It's a contradiction in terms. To say that an East African is being deported from East Africa doesn't make sense. Because when you deport somebody from your country to your country, That's not called deportation. And so they're breaking the law in any way, because East Africa is one unit right now. The only problem I have is why the president of East Africa, the chairman of the East Africa community, has not spoken on this matter.
All right.
And we just need to know why he hasn't. I mean, I'd like to hear President William Ruto this week, today. Let's hear what he says about Martha Karua being deported from home to home. What kind of deportation is that?
All right.
Even if you wanted to treat her very badly, you should simply say, turn back and go. But this idea of delaying, arresting, and deporting doesn't make sense. So I don't know what the panic is. Maybe within Chama Cha Mapinduzi there's a problem that she would like to show that she's a strong human being. But let me tell you, it's going to cost Samia. Someday she's going to regret that day that she tried to detain. And because you know Martha Karua, she's not going to be quiet about this. She's definitely not going to be quiet. If she managed to get Uganda, to get into Uganda's system, she fought and found herself now legally defending Besigye. So it's a wait and see. But I would have loved to think that we thought a lady president, a woman president in Tanzania, would probably understand the oppression, the difficulty in another woman getting through systems to that level, where she now defends the opposition leaders. She must be granted opportunity to go.
Okay.
Even a prisoner, you know, you're allowed to visit prison. I mean, you're not going to do anything, you're just going to see a prison. Anyway, I look forward to what happens next.
And for Martha Karua, of course, she has declared her interest in running for president of Kenya. For her to find herself on the front pages of all the major dailies, that must be a plus, Bonakirwa, despite the circumstances. For any politician to find yourself on the front pages of Monday newspapers.
Yeah, they say publicity of any nature is good for those who consume the news and also the people who are eliciting those headlines. But I think for her, this kind of publicity is deserving in the sense that it's something that we must condemn as a people of East Africa. Remember, Fred, in the wisdom of the late Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere, he used to demystify the borders between the different countries of East Africa. Look, for example, the Teso of Kenya, the Teso of Uganda, the Maasai of Kenya and the Maasai of Tanzania, and many other communities, including the community where the Honorable Pokisho does come from. So these boundaries really is just a figment of colonial arrangement, which of course we respected because we did not want to open Pandora's box. But when you look at it, we are suffering as a continent because we are limiting our own capacity to move freely and to allow goods and services to move also freely within the continent, to the extent that the inter-Africa trade is between 17 and 18%, when we could do a lot more if we were able to allow. And if you are refusing services such as legal services to be dispensed within East Africa by a qualified senior counsel, the Honorable Martha Karua, it is a sign that we still got that rigidity. We've not moved away from the relics of colonial system that was keeping us within these boundaries for convenience of colonial arrangement, exploitation, and destruction of our own internal economy. It is a problem, and for those of us who know something about the issue of progression in terms of integration, it is a setback, to say the least, to that process of integration of East Africa community. And of course, we have expanded all the way to DRC. But even within us, Kenya and Tanzania, two countries that really, they are like Siamese twins, we are not allowing free movement of legal services from here to Tanzania. and also interaction of the people. Yeah, many of us, of course, I can declare that my formative years, I spent 10 years in Tanzania. And therefore, for me, Tanzania is my second home. And anything I hear about Tanzania, I'm very keen to know how well they are doing. And I always celebrate our brothers and sisters in Uganda. At times when they win, whether it's Kiprotich from Kenya or Kiprotich from Uganda, we jointly celebrate because we say this is the strength of East Africa. So for a head of state to be oblivious of some of these interactions and this kind of brotherhood is a sign of a declining democratic principles within the continent of Africa.
Right.
A situation that we should condemn by all terms and by all individuals who are well-meaning when it comes to issues of democracy.
Allow me to welcome onto the set Wakili Ishmael Nyaribo. Wakili Nyaribo, karibu sana. As we continue to discuss this, even as you take your seat, Bwana Pugisio, now that you're talking about the East African region, there are other problems that have been noted. One of the Kenyan representatives to the East Africa Legislative Assembly appearing on another media station, and this is Winnie Odinga, curiously revealed that even the MPs have not been paid for a few months because there are serious financial problems in the East African community. Member states are failing to remit their contributions, and this includes Kenya and Tanzania because they usually were contributors but have slowed down payments due to dissatisfaction with other members' conduct. It's a sustainability of this dream of the East African community that is being called into question. Do you agree that probably, even as we sing in schools now, the anthem of the East African community, that we are still way far from achieving anything close to the integration we sought?
You know, Fred, we should be moving right now. We should be moving to the integration of the East African community. We should be moving there. I mean, we've done everything step by step. And so when you hear that major contributors, Kenya and Tanzania, Kenya is the highest, have not paid their dues, or they're slow in paying their dues, you'd begin to understand that we are not serious. We are not serious. Everyone who speaks about East African integration right now, you know, that means we should be like 5 years to full integration, at least 5 years. But there's nowhere. If a Ugandan right now, Uganda begins to block entry into Uganda, Tanzania begins to block entry into Tanzania, we can't be. By the way, even the thought of a parliament, I don't know how much we contribute. I used to know those things when I was in parliament. But I don't know how much we should contribute. But what Kenya contributes could actually run the affairs of the East Africa Legislative Assembly, YALA, for a few months. And if we are slow in paying, it's an indication that we are not well economically. We are not well financially as a country. If that's the only thing we are failing, that means there are many more obligations we probably will start losing or fail to pay. And that is an indicator that our financial situation is not good. We must then begin to think, where is our money going? What are we doing with our money? What has happened to us? The question of East Africa Legislative Assembly, where we send 9 members of parliament from Kenya. But you can imagine the countries around us got into all sorts of problems. Look at South Sudan, look at DRC Congo, and of course attached to that is Rwanda, because of the situation that they are in, the conflicts we're in. You have now Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania should be the founders of East African Community should be able to sustain the East African Community, because the rest are really failing in a way. Burundi is already down. So you think about it, out of whatever number we are now, there are already like 5 countries that cannot support themselves in this issue because of the situation failed. So IALA should begin to think of increasing the revenue, the contributions from Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, the original members, because they're the only ones who can begin to understand the very dream of East Africa community. The rest actually just joined in for various reasons. But the original members must not allow East Africa to die. Must not allow IALA, for example, to fail. The question, however, in my view is, how many people would support, if we were to ask Kenyans, that the East Africa Legislative Assembly is of any use to us? What is their role? What are they doing for us? Ask yourself. I don't know. I've never seen what they do for us. Because even by now, how many years later, the East Africa Legislative Assembly does not seem to be understood by the ordinary Kenyan. What is their role?
Okay.
How do people get there? Apart from the fact that people send their daughters and sons, what is the role of the of IALA for us?
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't had any, while the lady is complaining about not being paid, whatever it is, I need to hear more about how Mother Karua has been mistreated in Tanzania, and there is no voice of IALA that we can hear.
Let's give Wakili an opportunity to contribute to this discussion as we come to the end of it. Of course, we're discussing what's on most of the front pages, Wakili, the issue of lawyer Martha Karua being denied access into Tanzania. Of course, she was there on the invitation of the East Africa Law Society, which is another arm that we can talk about in this region. Should we see this as failure of the East Africa community dream, or just look at it from the legal perspective?
Yeah, I think there will be a storm. It's not the end. I think we expect better reaction from Law Society of Kenya, and we expect the East African Law Society also to make their strong statement about this. And besides, Fred, this is a product, the East African community is a product of a document, an agreement signed by the member states. And this return, because I had Mheshimiwa Pogisho saying, how can you deport a citizen from their own country? Nowadays you go to the migration, they give you, apart from if you have a diplomatic passport, they give you East African community passport. And it is expected that I would be in Dodoma today in the morning and I go to Jinja and then come back to Nairobi by afternoon. This is the whole purpose of the document. So without repeating what they have said, I think Martha Karua has recourse in the EAC document, the agreement that makes the community to lodge a dispute. And she's never shy, you know that. She will go to the East African Court of Justice, and then they have to evaluate. But just like they said before, the problem is not an order coming out of the East African Court of Justice court. The issue is, would then, Suluhu honor that order? And they went on to say also, can President Museveni honor the orders that come from the EAC or even from their own home country? So I think it's a major setback for Martha Karua to be returned to the country. It's illegal, actually, because as it were, we should be given free access to institutions and people in our various countries, yes.
Right. Yes, indeed, Martha Karua on the front pages today. On the front page of Taifa Leo, Karua afurushwa Tanzania. Suluhu goes rogue, that's the People Daily, the main headline. It is also there highlighted on the front page of the Daily Nation as well as a Standard. And that's one of the biggest discussions today. I want us to move on to something else, which is on the front page of the Daily Nation today. Gachagua faces arrest. President's allies say the former deputy president has resorted to turning his personal challenge into a national crisis. President Ruto's closest allies, this is the deputy president and Interior CS, have sustained the messaging throughout the weekend that former DP Rigathi Gachagua is not untouchable and that he will be arrested for alleged incitement as he stepped up his blistering attack on the government. Bwana Kirwa, this is what is expected from an opposition leader, that you will criticize the government and you'll be hard hitting on the government. Has it gotten to a point where you feel probably the former deputy president has gone overboard, therefore attracting this kind of response?
Well, again, Fred, it reminds us of the intolerance of those in power. For them, they can say anything and they want to let it go. And when somebody does criticize, that is not business as usual. If the next election is going to be stolen by anybody, it was not that he is going to foment trouble. He was saying if anything is going to be to the contrary, then some of the events of the past will be like child play. This therefore means we should be able to interrogate what are the factors that precipitated the 2007 post-election violence that visited this country and did a lot of destruction to the extent that we lost close to 1,000+ people, both killed by the police and some of them killed by rogues that were visiting this country from different parts of Kenya. This therefore means that, yes, we have to be cautious about what we say, but the way they lifted the whole issue went beyond, because I think they have been a bit sort of very dismissive of Rigathi Gachagua, wanting to make him look like he's a tribal kingpin, somebody who wants to cause trouble to the rest of the country, as a way of trying to isolate some part of this country and make that scare that lest you tolerate, we're going to isolate you and make you look bad. When we come together, whether it is Wamunyoro or Ishaweri or Sugoi, it doesn't mean the grounds become a factor that is tribal. Those of us who were in Wamunyoro the other Sunday came from different parts of the country. Personally, I come from the Rift Valley, and many other people come from different parts of the country. So I think the whole issue, if I was to give any recommendation, is that yes, let's be careful about what we say, but it is also important those in the government should not just be scaremongering us. If I make a mistake, instead of just issuing statements in church service and also inciting the local people, because where Murkomen was making that statement was a place where the community in that particular congregation happened to be the community that Murkomen does come from. And therefore, he was also inciting his people by talking about Rigathi Gachagua. Why doesn't he issue a statement from his office? Mm-hmm. And if they want Rigathi Gachagua, they can call him. And I'm sure he can drive himself to DCI and record a statement accordingly. So my take is that let us not build this intolerance. The post-election violence of 2007 was precipitated by the statements that were made by various FM stations in the run-up to the general election of that year. And the spark that destroyed the country was the fact that tension was already palpable among the people, only for the margin between President Kibaki and the Prime Minister Raila Odinga to be so small a margin that that election could have gone either way, just like the other election. Remember, for the last, I think, 5 elections, except the one of 2002, it has been too close, a difference of between 150 to 300,000. And the one of 2013 was almost going to be a runoff, except when there was an issue in court. There was a case that if you look critically, and I'm not a lawyer, that case was tantamount to amending the Constitution, because the very essence of the Constitution at that particular time was very clear. There are those we call spoiled votes, and the votes that are marked wrongly, and the spoiled votes were more than the votes that were garnered by one of the candidates, the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, in that particular election. And that allowed some people just to go without going for round 2. Otherwise, it was not critical 50% plus one vote.
Of course, as a nation, we cannot ignore or forget our history and the 2007 happenings and what happened even in 2000. That is one of the issues around our history that we need to learn from. But is this government becoming, or this administration becoming too hypersensitive that even the mention of the 2007 and 2008 and the happenings around it should not be discussed?
Fred, it's a very difficult to forget what happened in 2007, 2008. And in the midst of that chaos, where Kenyans went into a kind of a civil war, Kenyans against each other, then I was appointed that time to be the Minister for Communication and became the spokesperson around that time. And it was so difficult. And I think I've said it even here, how difficult it was to see to see how Kenyans were killed, including kids, small children, because of a political situation that led to that. We can't forget that. It's something of a background that against which we must say never again should we experience something like that. And I think what former Deputy President Gachagua was trying to say is, in a way, he could have just said never again should we experience this. The way he put it, he would be misunderstood, especially with a very sensitive situation like this. He would have been misunderstood, and he was. Although yesterday I saw him coming back to explain what he meant, what he said was. The truth is, those of us in the situation right now, in the political system right now, in one way or another, were involved in that particular time. And so you are reminding us of things we don't want to remember anymore. What has happened to this country? This is like the best country that East Africa and Africa should have in terms of democracy. This is the country that everybody's watching to see how we move. But when you start thinking that you can't imagine something, Murkomen has said, no one is above the law. That's true. That's basic law in the Kenyan Constitution, Kenyan law. If you want to arrest this guy for saying what he said, how many people are you going to arrest for what they say in this country? You better then open up more jails, because people in a democracy must speak. In a democratic, the freedom to speak. You have to link people in this country to the freedoms that they have in our Constitution. We have, by the way, our rights chapter is impossible for you to come and tell me. I mean, look at how many people you can arrest them, jail, but you know, you try to arrest them. Courts, if they really stand by the Constitution of this country and the laws of this country, you'll get them out. The reason I'm saying all this is because the days are gone, far gone, when you think if you are the Minister for Interior or you are the DC or the PC, you could threaten anybody and just say, I'm going to arrest you. I mean we have a law in this country. So let's move beyond that. Let's begin to say, how are we going to protect the freedoms of the people who speak for us? Because, I mean, look at what has just happened in Tanzania. Kenyans would be wondering what has happened to Tanzania. And so don't bring that to us and trying to show that you are a very powerful person, that you can do that. Let's understand what Kenya is. Kenya has come of age. We are no longer in the stage. Remember, when I was an MP, in 1988, one day, the KANU decided and said, we want to expel you. They expelled me out of KANU. But why? Because they had the power that time. That time the Constitution said Kenya is a one-party state. There's nothing I could do that particular time. So I was expelled from Kano. I lost my seat. But today, would you even try something like that? You can't. I mean, the constitution in Kenya is different. We then fought for the multi-party democracy. And now where we are with the new constitution 2010, I wish Kenyans would know that people would be speaking, but please don't take us back in any of those things. Don't take us back. We can't even go back. You know, there's situations where you say go back, and I can't even go back because it's not even possible to go back.
And before we get a legal perspective from Wakili, let's just see probably what the former deputy president said and the jitters that have emanated from that. Jitters over Gachagwa's remarks, that's a story filed on TV47. Let's watch it.
Kenyans have solutions to all the problems that bedevil this nation.
Barely 2 days after former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagwa's controversial sentiments on the 2007-2008 violence, a section of Kenya Kwanza leaders has condemned the remarks, terming them unfortunate for the country, especially coming from national leaders. In an interview with Obina TV on Friday, the former second-in-command argued that if the 2027 election were to be messed with, and President William Ruto ostensibly forced on Kenyans, the country would witness more violence than recorded after the 2007 elections.
Mimi sijasema Kenya itakuwa na fujo. Mimi nimesema, nikisikiza wa Kenya vile wanasema we William Ruto usijaribu kuiba uchaguzi. Na nimeuliza IBC, please be patriotic, msiweke hii nchi kwa shida.
Alego Usonga MP Samuel Atandi and Korea East MP Mara Kitayama denounced Gachagwa's remarks, cautioning him to be mindful of his statements. The lawmakers urged Kenyans to prioritize peace and ignore leaders whose words might fuel division in the country.
So it should be the last person to talk about political violence. Because if he is the one who's going to agitate for political violence, then he must be worried, he should be worried that his members of this community are everywhere.
Amani hii tulio nayo, hatujakuwa na amani hii kwa kubahatisha. Viongozi wetu wameipangia, wakaiona na wakatazamia.
History has shown when there is a contested election, there can be violence. And it has happened. And we must refer to history. That's why I said we saw what happened in 2007. So please, IBC, make sure you don't create a situation where we can have a recurrence of what happened in 2007.
Meanwhile, youth leaders led by Morara Kebaso and Kasmel Makaure stressed the importance of achieving accountability in the upcoming 2027 elections, calling on the IEBC to maintain fairness.
The young people of this country can lead. We are not too young to lead. Kutoka saa hii, nilisikia mwingine akisema ati watafanya vile walifanya 2007. Kwa sababu wamezoea kupiganisha vijana. Mimi nataka niwaambie hivi. In 2027, hakuna kijana atapiganishwa na mwingine.
Tusipopata justice for victims of police brutality, tutarudi pale pale. Ufisadi kama itaendelea, tutarudi pale pale.
The government has made it clear that it will not tolerate politically instigated violence or ethnic incitement. Mike Kagwango, TV47, Nairobi.
Wakili Nyeribo, what is your assessment? Do the remarks by the former deputy president, are they tantamount to incitement? Because that's what everyone is saying.
I've told you, Fred, every time we come here that, you know, you can take everybody or anybody to court for that matter, but will you succeed? That's a whole lot of different theses. So I don't think whatever Rigathi Gachagua said will amount to incitement of a criminal nature. Self-expressions, free speech are issues that are protected strongly by the Constitution. So he said two things. Why are you focusing on the second one? He talked about possibility of interfering with elections. And then he said violence. So why are you avoiding the first part? You see, the first part is discussing about there should be no interference with the elections. So are you going to arrest him because you are going to interfere with elections, or because he said you might interfere with elections. So I think it's important for Kenya Kwanza to come out clearly and say they intend to hold a free and fair elections. Yeah. What the public is saying is that even if you appoint William Ruto family to be the chairperson of the IEBC, that the country will still not vote for William Ruto. You see, this sounds like a hate statement, but it is not. It is just expression, self-expression. When people say Ruto must go, you can use that as an incitement remark. It is not. It is free speech and, self-expression.
Same as one term?
Of course, also when they say one term, by the way, there are people, there is a bad, a wrong way of holding on to government, and you assume the government is yours. Government belongs to the people of Kenya. So if they say you must go, or they say that it's one term, it is not an affront to the government. No, it is the individual they do not want to see there.
Let's get it clear from you, Achilles. So saying Ruto must go, saying one term, not tantamount to incitement.
It is not. I mean, it is not. If you go to the courts, you will be told it is not tantamount to incitement. Now, I want to remind you, Rigathi Gachagua actually repeated the words of Baba. In the past, Baba has repeatedly said that if you steal these elections, we will make this country ungovernable. What is that? Mm-hmm. And then he says that...
that is a direct threat.
Well, he has said it, isn't it? My point is, was he arrested? No. I mean, of course, Baba, yes, has his own person, the way he is. But even though, has he not set standards on how Kenyans should speak? Mm-hmm. Is he not among the people who have fought for freedom of speech in this country, removing Section 2A of the previous constitution? So you can't, even if you arrest Rigathi Gachagua, that actually is fine. And as I mentioned the other day, we will be very happy to rally behind him, to go to court, to try to understand why that remark is illegal or unlawful. No, it's not incitement. Mm-hmm. And also, Baba has said before, we will get a 1 million march to State House. You remember that kind of statement. And the youth emulated him in 2024. And you could see what happened. You see, the difference between Baba's statements and what he has taught his children, quote unquote, is that they will actually implement whatever Baba says, these young people are willing to implement. Now, just a while ago, you have played Makaure's clip, and you can see what Makaure is saying. He said, if we don't get police punished for that injustice they did to us, then he has made a very, very serious statement. So are you going, and Mheshimiwa here said, are you going to start putting people in jail every morning, every evening for what they say? So I think the onus is on Kenya Kwanza to go back to the drawing table and promise Kenyans that for sure we will not interfere with the elections. Mm-hmm. In fact, Ruto should be, as his opening remarks, he should say, I know you're calling me Kasongo, you called me, I must go home, you're telling me this. I want to promise you that I will not be interfering with the elections in 2027. If you send me home, I will go. That will bring cooling peace to the country. I mean, but the way they are talking, you see people coming on air, the close allies of William Ruto, the way they are talking to Kenyans, they are expressing bitterness, and you keep wondering why. Because the mood of the people is that they should have a change of leadership at State House. And by the way, I don't see why anybody should be so bitter about this. Mm-hmm. You can leave State House, probably later you can come back, who knows? I mean, Trump lost, he has come back. So let people not feel that they are in jail or imprisoned into your method of leadership or governance. Okay. People can say they don't want you, that's okay, that's their choice. People can say, and by the way, this is true, Fred, I don't think anybody will try to steal 2027 elections. Not with the intelligence that is available to everybody, not with the learned, very highly educated young people we have, who have understood systems more than we used to understand them previously. So nobody should panic and start saying we will arrest you. There is no need even to say we will arrest you. You should arrest him, then we go to court, and then we see what the court... And
any such action, Borakirwa, if at all they move to arrest Rigathi Gachagua, that would definitely lionize him more. The issue is when Rigathi Gachagua was impeached sometime last year, the expectation by UDA and Kenya Kwanza was that he was going to fizzle out politically in a matter of weeks. This is months later. and the Deputy President, the Interior CS, are still going on podiums talking about the former Deputy President. That means he has become seriously a thorn in the flesh.
Yeah, it's true. Should he be arrested, I think they will give him new bonga points that will allow him to be elevated to another level. And that would give him a free headline stories and also galvanize the support he already enjoys even more than it is today. The second issue is that we need to really, the way Wakili has said, to fundamentally ask ourselves, what is the preceding statement? Remember, one of the MPs, I think that's Oscar Sudi, said even if the votes will not be enough, we shall add. So if they plan to add the votes, that is where we'll precipitate disaster. But if they have no intention of adding votes that don't exist, we have no problem. And therefore, what is important is for them to say, no, this thing we are winning without any manipulation of any votes. And that prepares the country to be peaceful and also to prepare for either the same person to be returned by majority of votes or the same person to go home. And possibly we deal with the new leadership. So it is important for them to know that Rigathi Gachagua, where he is today, he has acquired another status that when they were impeaching him, they underrated the influence that he was going to galvanize. And many people, including ordinary Kenyans from Rift Valley, the Kalenjin in Rift Valley, they were telling the president, we did not know Gachagua. It is you who brought him. Now, why do you want to bring this issue to the public? I remember there is a lady from Kipsigis who told the current president that President Moi was able to hold this country for 24 years. Why are you allowing us to destroy this country when it is in your hands? And that statement, I still have it in my phone, was so informed by certain wisdom. And the lady from Baringo said, we did not know this Gachagua. You brought him? Why don't you resolve your issues in Nairobi? Don't do whatever you are telling us you want to do. Which means actually in terms of public participation, the Kalenjins who support the current president were very clear they did not want Gachagua to be impeached. And the AD listened to his own community. By now, things would be different. You would have actually been able to tame Gachagua and even drop him towards the next general election. But now he has created a monster in him. So he created Gachagua, so he must deal with Gachagua. It is not us to be told we are going to deal with him, taking him to court. Taking him to court is actually making him a mountain. And he will not be able to touch him again for the rest of the period. Up to
Fred,
2027.
I don't take Mheshimiwa's mic, but are you seeing that contradiction of Oscar Sudi says that if we lose elections, hata tutachukua ingine na kuongezea. You know, that's an affront to institutions.
Yeah.
It's very bad to IBC. When you speak like that and you are not the one who counts the votes, what methodology will you use to add vote? Now, that is the person who's supposed to be in court.
Yeah.
That's now the guy who's supposed to be charged now, so that citizens know that, okay, Kenya Kwanza is extremely serious about 2027 elections.
All right. One of the senior-most politicians to speak about the remarks by the former deputy president is the current deputy president, Kithure Kindiki. We have a story on Kindiki warning Gachagua over incitement. Let's watch that story and see exactly what the professor said.
Loose-lipped politicians in the country may find themselves in hot water after the government said it will tighten up against politicians who are found spreading hate messages in the country.
2 years and some months before an election, some of the leaders of this country are busy putting the country on a campaign mode. Biblia inasema kuna kila jambo iko na majira yake. Wakati wa campaign ukifika ndio wakati wa campaign. Sasa hivi ni wakati wa kusukuma mambo ya maendeleo, barabara na stima na maji. And I want to say, without any fear of contradiction, any leader who is encouraging early political campaigns does not wish our country well. because we cannot be a country that campaigns from day one, year one to year 5. It is unfortunate and unpatriotic to put the country on a campaign mode. Lakini kwa sababu kuna demokrasia, kama hawatasikia waendelee na mambo yao, hatuna shida. Kuna watu wanatabiri vita. Nataka niwahakikishie wananchi wote wa Kenya kwa niaba ya serikali na kwa niaba ya Rais William Ruto ya kwamba uchaguzi mkuu wa mwaka 2027 utakuwa wa huru na haki. As government, we will go out of our way to make sure that the election and the people's choices for all seats, the election is peaceful, democratic, free and fair, because that is what the Constitution demands of us. And I also want to ask the people who are prophesying violence to warn them that our country has gone through very painful moments in the past because of political violence. And we would not want our country to go back there.
It's a rather sober statement, especially on the issue of democracy and how the rule of law with regard to the electoral process from the former deputy president. I know the initial statement he made about Kenya being on a campaign mode may not really make sense because he appears to be on a campaign mode himself. But if we may gauge the statement with regard to the promise that this government will ensure that the next elections are free and fair, probably the most sober of all the comments you've seen.
Fred, I was watching very carefully as the Deputy President spoke. And the only place where he got a few claps from that audience, if you watch it again, is when he said the elections will be free and fair. Mm-hmm. By the way, you know, the Kenyans were just watching him and listening to him. But when he said that confirmation, you could hear a few claps. That's an indication as to what Kenyans want. And that should be the language of government. The only problem is that he mixed it up with all sorts of threats, and it makes what he said validly almost get lost, because if you start by saying early campaigns and you are campaigning, you know, by the way, now let me tell you, who is the master of early campaigns in this country? I mean, we should direct that information to the right people who are campaigning right now. I do want to believe that what Kenyans want to hear from this government, what Gachagua wanted to hear from this government, is that assurance. And there's no way you're going to repeat the threat. Just focus on that assurance. But the question, and Wakili here has helped us understand, the people who should be in court, charged, are the people who are threatening to steal elections. Vainly, they're saying we're going to steal those elections. So, I mean, anybody who is now saying, okay, even if he's your brother, you must then stop them from saying things that may implicate this current government in the plan to steal elections. And I'm very happy, by the way, with what the young people are saying. The clip that showed Makaure and Marara speaking to young people, saying, if they do this, we will do this. That is the freedom they have. Those guys, if you tell them about 2007, they don't even know what happened in 2007. They want something new. They want an assurance like the one that Kindiki has given. And I think if you want to really lead this country well, even the president of this country should come out and say, assure Kenyans that 2027 elections will be free and fair. There'll be no interference. I tell you what, the current team of IEBC, the ones that have been now just formed, whatever the commission, they must speak that language from now henceforth. Assure Kenyans that when under our watch, you will have nothing to fear. They must do that, because already there's a suspicion that it's a government entity. So the only way they can save themselves now is to say, from day one, when they go to the media, that we can assure you that the elections in 2027 will be safe under our watch.
Right.
Yeah.
Questions about IEBC that is yet to be vetted by Parliament. The vetting begins next week from Monday, the 27th of this month. But this kind of talk about whether or not the elections will be free and fair, that definitely puts a lot of pressure on the team that is even yet to be vetted by Parliament. The same team that has already been taken to court, 4 of the members already, the 4 members, including the chairperson, already questioned. Doesn't it just put a lot more pressure on IEBC?
Now, it's called Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. So it's independent. So, and you know, it's like a judge, once, or a commission, independent commission, once it has been commissioned and put in office, they must be independent. I don't mind about the matters in court, yes, they will be prosecuted, it will be, some finding will come out. But what Erastus should tell the people, in fact, from the date of vetting in Parliament, he should make it very clear that I'm above any partisan interests. I will ensure that this election is free and fair. But speech alone is cheap, you know, talk is cheap if you do not show by action what you will do. There must be systems in place to show that in event you are going to do grassroots elections, we will not interfere and we will not allow any arm of government or private citizen to interfere with your right to contest. So if he can say that and the whole team comes out and says the same, and then they show us the systems that they will put in place to arrest any intent of rigging elections. And then they should be transparent. They should say, we shall use these machines, this is the system, you can audit it as citizens at any time, you know, at the ground you vote, and then, you know, your person has the paper and you load it, you upload it to the system, you can audit how the system is. If he says like that, I can assure you that there will be a recall of Parliament and probably look for how to get another chairman of the IEBC. So we want to hear that talk, basically.
All right. Yeah. On the IEBC, Bwana Kirwa, this, when people are saying tutaongeza, hata kama hatashinda tutaongeza kura, then that definitely puts pressure on the commissioners.
Yeah, it puts pressure on the commission. But allow me just to say this, Fred. When I saw those Kenyans who have been picked, for me, it doesn't matter. I find them, when you check their background, they are good people. But we hope they are not going to succumb to the emasculation of institutions, because we know this regime, and that is where the fear emanates from. This regime has emasculated almost every other institution of government, starting with the National Assembly, the Senate, the judiciary, and also within even the executive. It is more of one-man show. These are some of the fears that we have, that yes, they are good people, and I just want to recommend them, that yes, they are just having a chance to enter the annals of history of the good books of this country, that when so-and-so ran the election with the support of so-and-so, the IBC as is proposed, that is when elections were seen to be free and fair. It will be the biggest news for Kenyans, and we want to encourage them not to fear anything, because yes, the regime of the day may have power today, but if they're able to announce the correct results for all positions in government and minimize the number of petitions after the next general election, that would be something that should be thought about. And as the Wakili said, it is an affront to any institution to say that we are going to add the votes without using, you know, when we lose, that we are not going to be one term because we shall be able to manipulate the votes. What instruments are they going to use? They are the ones actually who are precipitating the situation that they make people feel already these elections have been stolen. And I want to disabuse many Kenyans who say President Ruto is going to steal the election. I don't want us to put it in his mind that he's capable of stealing elections without running into serious trouble. And I just want to remind him and those who do not know the history of Africa that there are 4 presidents who have been one term. President of Zambia, President of Botswana, and 2 in West Africa. And in one of the countries, actually the wife of the president, when they were traveling from abroad, told him the situation at home is not good. So the guy never ran for a second term. So if the situation reaches that level and the president is told this is a bad election for you, he can cool his shoes, then come back after 5 years, try it again, win or lose, and that is democracy. This is something that we should encourage Kenyans to know. You see, unfortunate thing about William Ruto, he has not directly lost elections himself. And therefore, he is of this notion that there is no election that he can lose. When he lost the election in AU, when he was trying to promote Prime Minister Raila Odinga to be the chair of AU Commission, that was the first time he got a setback. And you could see he was feeling so bad, akin to the situation he was feeling in 2002 when President Uhuru lost when he supported him. If you check that picture of 2002 and the picture that you saw in AU, President Ruto is allergic to being declared a loser. And therefore, I just want to advise him that yes, this election, the way it is, and I've been around slightly longer than him, is likely to lose. And when you lose with a margin of 2 million, there is no way you can rig. And you know, people think, you know, logistically, even this issue that, they are going to bring other people from other countries, to bring even people from one constituency to the other, even 2,000 people, it is a logistical nightmare. So I would rather he deals with Kenyans. He does not import people to come and become pseudo-voters when they are not the people of this country.
Fred, it's very important that perception is being demystified because there's a perception. You know, winning, by the way, winning or losing, creating governments starts with perception. And when you see people saying that William Ruto can never lose, number one. Then now there's another line they are using that he's already finished. Elections in 2027 have already, this is what we hear in the village. They've already finished. So we should make it clear that it is people who vote, and actually anybody can win and anyone can lose. Especially now when Raila Odinga is saying, he's actually contradicting his elder brother, who is extremely vigorous about share yetu mutulete hapa na hatunyang'anyi wale wengine, which may look okay, but Orengo is always, you know, clarifying that that's a very bad situation. In a democracy, we get development because we deserve it, not because somebody wants to dish it out to us. So I think the Kenya Kwanza must approach these elections in a honest way so that if they lose, they do not frustrate their supporters. People should always remember that you are a leader, yes. Who is behind you? What are you going to, how are you going to explain to him once you have lost and they rely, you know, they depend on you? So that statement by Raila Odinga made me understand. You can see how Sifuna is always coming out, reminding people that I am the Secretary General of ODM. And probably what he's not telling people in a more rude way is those guys are there to get some little bit of salary and go home. I mean, the broad-based government, so to say. So the 2027 elections, people do not feel comfortable with Kenya Kwanza. Let's be honest. They feel like we should change and see who else might go to State House to help, you know, the citizens.
But Bonapogisio, it would appear that the kind of conversations we are having, and this is not even from the political class, Kenyans in general, is influenced by a lot of fear. Fear that we are not in control, that someone else is in control of everything, is in control of the IEBC, is in control of the Parliament, is now even in control of the judiciary, and I'm referring to the front page of the Standard, captured justice. Is this fear? Because back to your pet subject about the trust deficit, Kenyans appear to totally lack confidence in all these institutions that, as Wakili says, Some people in rural areas say imeisha.
Fred, to define trust, trust is a confident belief, confident belief in something or someone. And the confidence in Kenyans is gone. It's not there. It's, if you ask them today, they would even doubt their own name because someone seems to be all over the place. And that's not good for the country. By the way, there are many things that this government could start to do to restore that trust. First of all, there are few people who go to church every Sunday. And all they do is to say we are responsible for everything in this country. You can't say this, you can't say that. We will win these elections, we can never be a one-term. You know, all those things are going through the people saying, now, are you the ones determining these things, or we are the ones determining these things? And the country needs to be told that the process belongs to the people. And by the way, I come back to saying that I have seen these young people, the Gen Zs, begin to go out with their own rallies, go out and speak to their peers. Because you can only threaten people of another generation. You know,
this was common during Daniel Moi's time.
No, you will, even my generation, even my generation.
You could not see beyond the president.
You can threaten us. But there's a team, a group, an age group, which is here today. I mean, even at home, you can't threaten them, even in your own house. Look at this. We have moved from that point. And I hear people, I may not name them, every weekend carry lots of money, okay? Everywhere they carry cash. They want to show you that they are the people in charge. They show you opulence in the midst of poverty. You know, I've never understood why, if you're going to a village, you must show opulence. I don't understand that. If you're going to address the people, you must show opulence. You must define the shoes. My shoes are worth this much. My watch is worth this much. I mean, what are you doing to yourself? It actually needs to be understood that those same people you're talking to are wondering whether their resources are safe under you. So I want you to get that background. The problem with this country today is that we are not in a place where we have total control. And so you have to show somehow that you are in control, but you can never control the people and the population of today. The level of education in this country, the guy who is driving a matatu today has a degree. The guy who is conducting that matatu is a university graduate. You are no longer going to threaten people today.
Yeah, these are the discussions we're having, and we seem to be coming from a point of fear. And I'm asking you this because you've been in leadership for quite a while, and you've worked with all these different presidents. Why is it that this particular one is seen as all too powerful, that he's able to manipulate elections, that IEBC sees under him, that the judiciary... Have we ever been in that position before? And was it really just perception or the reality?
Fred, I'll tell you this. For sure, there is a situation in our hands that the judiciary, for example, and this headline says the judiciary, for example, because we have examples of people whose cases have been withdrawn and things like that, showing that you're powerful enough to actually cause that to happen. Our fear should be, how do we strengthen those institutions? The three arms of government, the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. If you can control the judiciary and the legislature, it's a wrong thing to do. But you would deceive yourself, you'll cheat yourself, you'll actually think you are controlling the population. You can do what you want to do with them. But every 5 years, Kenyans come together and say, do we want you or do we not want you? And this headline is befitting. It's befitting. But it's also a challenge to Kina Wakili here and others, who have also raised the same issue, by the way. You know, the lawyers in this country have raised the same issue about the judiciary. The latest in the judiciary was the situation with Gachagua, where a deputy chief justice empaneled, and the court of appeal comes and says, you did the wrong thing. You don't have the powers to do the same. So we are beginning to see a sense in which some kind of trust will have to be established about this judiciary.
But aren't Kenyans probably justified in this feeling? Because we've seen what has happened to the Houses of Parliament. Totally captured by the executive. They cannot do anything against the executive. If anyone is that powerful, shouldn't we assume that they are also as powerful enough to capture the judiciary and, by extension, also other, what we may call independent commissions, including the IEBC?
Well, but you cannot capture the will of the people. You know, you can capture all these institutions, but if the will of the people will be overwhelming in favor of certain individual in the next general election, the president will find himself at crossroads with reality on the ground. And it has happened before. President Moi was reputed not to have lost an election. And therefore, when those who were campaigning for Kanu in 2002, they were reminding their supporters that, do you know that President Moi has never lost an election? And therefore, he would not allow even anybody to take over power because he is in charge and he's the commander-in-chief. All manner of things were said. And even after we won in 2002, we are being referred to as the government of the opposition by some of the individuals still in town, hanging today, imagining that the will of the people can be circumvented. So if the will of the people is going to be overwhelming in favor of certain individual, even the IBC will be forced to pronounce the right results, because anything else would spell a disaster to the country, and therefore IBC will find itself not able to do anything. Yeah, you remember when Justice Maraga annulled the 2017 election, people thought it was the end of the world. People were saying he has done the worst thing that can ever be done, and we were able to realize that there was another country where, away from Africa, where elections of a president were annulled. Thank God we went through that transition, and it became a lesson to Kenyans. So let us also realize that as we wish the current president, we wish him well, we want to encourage him to speak less lies, we want to encourage him to talk about realistic projects, we want to encourage him to tell us that yes, he is forced to take loans, because there is no way you are collecting 70 shillings, is going to pay to repay the loan. You are left with 30 shillings to deal with development and current expenditure. So we want to encourage him to struggle, but we also want to encourage him to learn that losing an election is a normal process of democracy. And therefore, the most important thing in any election is the process. The process must be seen not to be interfered by anybody, including himself. So at the end of the day, if he wins, we tell him, okay, you have your last term. If he doesn't win, we tell him you have a chance to fight another day. The way Trump did a comeback. So he has that chance because the Constitution is very clear. It's 2 terms. And even if it is interrupted, the other term is still for him to try a chance and make a comeback should he offer better alternative solutions. But scaremongering is not going to make those of us who are not with him just to feel that we cannot campaign for a candidate of our choice. And it is very clear. Anyway, those of us in the alternative, we are clear we are going to present one candidate. All the leaders that have declared, we are going to present one candidate. Of course, there may be some other fringe candidates, and because it's democracy, you cannot deny them. But if we present one candidate, 60% of Kenyans are saying so and so must go.
Right.
Fred.
And even as you respond, Wakili, as an officer of the court, you should be worried, and this kind of headline that definitely does worry,
Sure.
that Kenyans are not seeing the judiciary as a last line of defense.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. But I wanted to remind you that when the disciples of Jesus were so scared of how Jesus is going to leave them and the tribulations they were, he told them, do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot reach your soul. I think Kenyans have developed a very different soul, by the way. If you look at the kind of abductions that were done, you know, Kenya Kwanza has actually mastered the art of scaring people, away. And you saw that the youth could not allow that, and Mheshimiwa Pugisha has elaborated that clearly, that these are not youth you can scare off, that we will shoot you, kill you. They are not in that business. They don't care, don't give a damn. Now, therefore, we have a soul now that has transmuted itself into large confidence. And that's why you saw Kenya Kwanza rushed to Raila to tell him that, please help us, otherwise we are sinking. And Raila accepted to help them. Of course, for other reasons, we don't have enough time to discuss now, but at least Raila agreed to assist them. And that's why you see now a bit of confidence again coming back. There is no human being who is created of steel or rock. We are all human beings, and even Kenya Kwanza people are scared. Now, talking about the judiciary, I think our last point of hope should be the judiciary. And I think we should cut them their slack. You can see what they have done in annulling almost every other order from the president that is not correct. It has been reversed. I mean, so many of them, you see them every other week, every other month. The High Court is coming in to reject this or that order from Kenya Kwanza people, you know. So the only thing we should do, which I agree entirely with what Mheshimiwa said here, we need to know how to strengthen these institutions. There is no space in this world, whether you are in the West or in the East or in Africa, that does not have bad oranges, you know, and it's not impossible for somebody cunning to tap such bad oranges. But even when this has been done, you saw how regarding impeachment. Somebody comes up, is an officer of court, she knows very well she doesn't have the mandate, but she manipulates people intellectually and appoints a bench. Now you can see the Court of Appeal has said, no, this is not. So our last point of hope is actually the judiciary. And you saw what Maraga did in 2017. I mean, look at that, the way he raised our hopes. I mean, like, you mean you can nullify a general election of our country? So we still have hope in the courts. We must look out for the independent and honest judges. They are there and they will be helping us. And everybody today knows that the only hope we have is if the judges can stand up and say, we will maintain the edicts and provisions of the Constitution of Kenya. Yeah. So we still have hope, yes. I mean, there are a few friends you may have in any institution you want to capture. I think the headline is a little bit exaggerated. It's not like he has captured the whole judiciary. For sure, we practice in these courts and we know the judges also are Kenyans and they can tell where you openly are trying to, you know, like suppress or oppress people. So, yeah, our last point of hope is actually the judiciary.
All right. Gentlemen, final comments. We have just about 5 minutes, so about a minute and a half each, starting with Waziri Kirwa.
Yes, I'm happy to hear Wakili Nyaribo say that we still got hope in the judiciary. But my hope is in the people of Kenya, who shall galvanize support for whoever they feel is going to be their next president, and they should do it in such large numbers that nobody can play around with the mandate of the people.
All right. Thank you, Waziri.
I am very sure that the IEBC Commission, the people who have been nominated are going through parliamentary scrutiny. You will be sure that they will pass through Parliament. Parliament will pass people, even those that they shouldn't pass, and they will be appointed. So the message to them is, as you get appointed, you get confirmed and you become a commission, that they should therefore delink from the process and live and practice as an independent electoral and boundaries commission, IEBC. That the chairman, whom I respect, the chairman, is from a community that we could say is a small community, the Turkana, my neighbors. And I say, knowing the kind of people that they are, this is the opportunity, for example, to show that when a minority is appointed to a position like this, it's not because he's a minority, it's because he deserves to be in that position and that he can be strong enough to make decisions and make it an independent electoral boundaries commission. I just pray that they should not let us down. They should really make sure that we give us the confidence that we need right now.
Okay. Thank you, Wakili.
Yes, Fred, thank you. We don't need to fear anything. I think the human soul of Kenyans today is so large and it has taken its own form. And our life and our decisions, destiny of this country is in the hands of God and the Constitution. It is not in the hands of any one or two individuals who may want to feel larger than life. Our soul, our lives is in the hands of God and the Constitution of Kenya.
All right. And on that very hopeful note, we wrap up our State of the Nation discussion this morning. Thank you so much, Wakili Ishmael Nyaribo, Kipruto Rapkirwa, who served as Cabinet Minister in the Kibaki 1 administration, and Samuel Pugisio, who served as Minister in the Kibaki 2 administration, and also as Senate Majority Leader in the 12th Parliament. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time at TV47. After the break, Monday Blitz discussing all the weekend sports and a lot more that we anticipate as the major leagues globally come to an end in the next week or so. After that, we'll be having another discussion on access to justice for women in customary marriages. Do stand by for these conversations after the break. My name is Fred Indimuli.